it all just a dream? Or a podcast? Welcome everyone to Super Audio Robo Podcast Z. I'm Ark, that's Neff, and this is the show where we recommend you the finest mecha content for your cultural and artistic development. And we're going to another world this time.
Another world filled with 90% more bishonen.
Yes. Everyone is unreasonably pretty.
Yes. This is Vision of Escaflowne we're talking about today.
Yep, like we promised last week, we were going to be talking about an isekai, which was not as specific as you might think.
No.
There are a few candidates.
Yeah.
Sorry everyone out there that was probably like, but what about Aura Battle Dunbine? It's like, well, I mean, if we watched it, we would.
I mean, I watched half of it, not all of it, but it's very good from what I watched. It's just a lot.
It's an 80s robot show. Those things go on for a year, especially when it's Sunrise we're talking about.
Yeah, but...
Although coincidentally, this is also a Sunrise anime.
Yes, it is. So why don't you get into the synopsis for this one?
All right. Time to explain what Vision of Escaflowne is all about. Hitomi Kanzaki is living her ordinary high school life when on the day she'd hoped to share her first kiss with her senpai, a warrior and a dragon appear on the school grounds and a deadly battle ensues. But in the aftermath of the fight, Hitomi and the warrior known as Van are both whisked away to the world of Gaia, a fantasy realm where the real Earth hangs in the sky as its moon. Van returns to his kingdom only for it to soon after be burned to the ground by the Zybok Empire, led by Isaac Dornkirk, who seeks to subjugate Gaia and create a world with no uncertainty. Hitomi now must help Van and her newfound allies to both stop the Zybok Empire's plans and find a way back home.
I don't know if you would call it a typical fantasy, adventure story, except one with giant mechs in it.
I mean, at least it doesn't start with Hitomi getting hit by a fucking truck.
It's true. No, when we say isekai, we mean isekai in the classical sense. In the,
yes.
What it used to be. Not what the modern definition is.
It's not a story that starts with a character dying and reincarnating into, a very shallow world that exists basically to be gamified.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of thing. This is very much a journey to, another world where there's, an actual, story, actual character arcs, and, lessons to be learned, more or less, for, our main character.
And where the main characters usually want to go home instead of going, oh no, this is the perfect world for me since I was a loser in the other world or something like that.
But yeah, this is a very classic style isekai. Came out in the mid-90s, which, funny enough, I think about that and how it's the mid-90s, we basically had two isekai anime where the main character or characters are female, and there are also giant robots involved, although in very different capacities.
Yeah, the other one, which is not a show we're talking about. We're talking about Ray Earth, right?
Yeah, Ray Earth is what I was referring to.
Yes, which is a show we're not going to talk about, but I'm going to say is a rough show, but it's still pretty good.
I choose to keep remembering it entirely for its OP, but that applies to a lot of anime out there.
Yeah, that's true. The OP is it's a classic.
But then again, it's not Yoko Kanno, so
Oh yeah, also the music is the music in the show is composed by one of the greats. In case we haven't mentioned that already. Why don't we get into the history of this show, how it got created? Yeah,
because turns out the prehistory that we got to get into, there's a fucking lot.
Yeah, there is so much to go into on this one.
Not very many anime that we talk about usually and is the sort of thing where the amount of time it takes from the inception of the original idea to final production is as long as this one.
Yeah, even I was a little surprised when I read all this.
Yeah, because Vision of Escaflowne is a fantasy real robot anime that might seem like an oxymoron, but believe me, it is very much a real robot anime. They are treated as such. I mean, this setting takes itself seriously and believes itself to be a real place, therefore it counts.
Yeah.
And yes, as we said before, produced by Sunrise, while a product of the mid-90s, specifically airing in 1996, its initial idea was conceived several years prior and had to basically like wait for many delays to pass before it could even be made into what it was eventually known for. But the initial idea, this is one thing where like when I was getting all this info, I guess like prior to this, I had slightly underestimated how much this one person's involvement was in the show beyond just the mecha designs, and that was Shoji Kawamori.
Yeah.
Like, basically, the whole concept was born out of him taking a trip to Nepal, and like I think specifically what he had mentioned was what was like a scene of like nature. He saw like a mountainous area with like very low hanging clouds, and like just that kind of vibe. He basically just got the idea like off of that vibe and wanted to be like, what if we made like a fantasy robot series that like had a fantasy world like this as the backdrop?
Which makes a lot of sense when you watch a show.
Yeah, so some of that definitely applies. And also thinking again to what we know about Shoji Kawamori in terms of like all the other creative works that he's been involved in outside of Macross, it's like it makes sense that this would be like a fantasy series where like a major aspect of it is the idea of like divination and like all kinds of other mythical elements being included. I mean, like, for fuck's sake, like Atlantis factors into the backstory of like this show's universe. Like, we know how much Kawamori is way into like a lot more of like the flowery and like religious or mystical kind of like visual or story aspects, and like trying to infuse those into his works, least of all because it's like Macross, with how much it is all in on the power of music, it doesn't really leave much room for those kind of aesthetics, you know? Like that's why stuff like Aquarion exists, where he's able to get away with that more often. Between
this and Aquarion and Macross, all I get is like, if you let this man cook, that he's going to come up with some, well, I was going to say real wild stuff, but I don't, this show is not as wild as Aquarion. It's got some big ideas, though.
Yeah. And even then, like, a lot of the big ideas that it ends up having the anime gets carried by, you know, like, the rest of the staff at Sunrise that eventually put it together. But again, like we said, the production would not go into full swing immediately because so many people were changing positions and we're just busy with other projects at the time, with quite possibly the most wildest factoid to like both of us. Yasuhiro Imagawa was originally selected to direct this anime before his priorities shifted towards G Gundam.
Holy shit, I did not know that until I read all that. And that was like I would have loved to have seen what a Imagawa like Escaflowne would look like, because I bet it would have been so much different. Though,
at the very least, Imagawa obviously did not work on the final product, but he did make a pretty important contribution beforehand and by coming up with the word Escaflowne, which is like part of the title and the lead mecha that it's derived from. Like, I think the idea is that it's that it's like a Latin-based derived word from like for escalation.
Yeah.
Is, I guess, like the idea, which I think also kind of factors into a lot of the other like names that you see on a lot of the different robots in this show. Is like, if you actually like go on wikis and stuff and kind of look up where the origins of like the different names are, you see that they're all like using some kind of modified like derived take on like an existing word from some other language.
Right, yeah.
But because of all these delays, two things actually ended up happening. One, Shoji Kawamori, I guess because he just could not wait any longer for the anime to get made, decided that he would just write a manga. He didn't illustrate it, he just did the writing. I forget who the illustrator was, but it basically started in 1994, 2 years before the anime would actually air, and then finishing in 97, which meant that like the story, from what I was able to gather, I've not read through all of it, is that it's working on like earlier versions of like the story material, which means, you know, that obviously is having like a very different feel already. But for the anime itself, it would finally get underway when they got their actual director, Kazuki Akane, who's like a fairly newish like employee at Sunrise at the time, I think, or at least new to directing. We may never get something wild like an Imagawa directed Escaflowne. You and I have definitely been like imagining like just what the hell that could have possibly been.
Yeah.
the most I think that has been like implied by what Imagawa had envisioned for it was an anime that was significantly more masculine. Stuff where it would be like all the men would have been a lot more like harder edged, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
While still keeping the women pretty, you know, like something where it was like clearly more boy oriented. Like, I'm just imagining Escaflowne, but with G Gundam's art style, and that's probably not too far off from what it would have been if it went that direction.
And
but
yeah,
it's Akane being the director, where I'd say that he made the ultimate smart decision, as it helps like the legacy of this show in particular, choosing to broaden the appeal of like this anime by like by including a lot of elements that would make it appealing to women.
Yeah, and I have a bit of a hot take here when I think about old isekai, and my hot take is it's better when it has a bit of a shoujo flair to it. You know, when you got the pretty boys, you got the lady. You know what I mean when I say shoujo flair, right?
Yeah,
where it's
like it's the aesthetic quality, which I guess like it makes it a lot. It makes it a lot more natural when you are putting it like in a very true like fantasy setting.
Yeah. Also, I think like you said, I think it was for the show benefit that it was more like it was made towards more appealing to women than making more of a masculine show. I think that's what makes the show also stand out as well.
Especially because I think even from my experience of watching it, it's like they have like a lot of elements in there that like that makes it appealing to that shoujo demographic, but I think like the ultimate result is that it actually splits the difference pretty well in terms of appealing to both.
Yeah,
because you have all those like shoujo aesthetic flavorings, but then you have that contrasted by like occasionally pretty brutal giant robot fight scenes.
Oh yeah,
like it gets violent and explosive when it needs to.
Oh yeah, no, this show doesn't hold back with some of its more intense scenes. And I think you're right there that it splits the difference a lot more, and it has like a more universal appeal, I guess is how I put it.
And I think even helps further solidify the idea that like, this is what makes more classical isekai good, in that everyone working on this gives a shit about making the another world aspect feel believable and real.
Yeah.
But if there's also one last thing that we can bring up that was an important contribution to the final product, it's the anime's music. Legendary composer Yoko Kanno. She was the one that was selected to write the score for this anime, including the opening theme. And this ties in as well to like one of our voice actors, because the person that sung the OP was Hitomi's voice actor. The first major anime role, at least like TV anime role, for then 16-year-old Maya Sakamoto. This is one of her earliest works before going on to continue being like a well-respected and prolific voice actress for decades. Anime, TV, video games, all sorts of stuff.
If you were a fan of anime in the 2000s or like the early to late 2000s, she was everywhere. She is like one of the goats of voice acting.
Last thing I remember her for was that she was actually the voice of Cutie Honey in Cutie Honey Universe.
Yeah.
Which was like, that was a great fucking pick.
And she's still getting work even now, like years later, which good for her.
Still wild to me that it was like she had this role when she was fucking 16. Like she was like, I think she was only a year older than what Hitomi's like age was in the show anyway, which makes her about as close as possible to like embodying that character, I am going to say.
Yeah, it's crazy that she was that young when she started voice acting.
Yeah, and it's like she does a good job as Hitomi, and like her singing the opening is like it's really good. Like I like that OP. Admittedly a lot more than all the other like songs like on the soundtrack itself, but then again it's like that's more a case of the soundtrack itself, its score being extremely diverse and having like a whole lot of different background tracks depending on like on the situation. Some of it's like very sweeping orchestral. Some of it is incredibly dissonant and off-putting, deliberately so.
Yeah.
But it's all good shit. Like the music all complements like the much softer and like beautiful visuals that that accompany like this entire anime. And all these elements, after so many delays, came together for the finished anime, airing on Japanese TV from April 2nd to September 24th, 1996. 26 episodes, although depending on who you ask, there are there were plans initially for a much longer show than this ended up being. Akane, I believe, stated that this might have been only from his perspective when he was brought on to direct the show, is that I think in his mind the plan was always for it to be 26 episodes. But at the earliest inception, when this was when Kawamori had the idea after his trip to Nepal in late 80s, early 90s, I think the idea he said was that it was going to be 39 episodes. But the final product is 26, and what I gather is any sort of rewrites to the story was mostly due to truncating it and just speeding up the pacing so that it wouldn't drag or anything in order to fill that large of an episode length.
Yeah, that does make sense, because I always felt like the last half or last few episodes felt a little more rushed. So if they were compressing their ideas, that would make more sense. It's still
definitely
still not as bad as it when it happens to other shows, but
yeah, it's not as bad when trying to cram things into an entire 12 episode season, but it's fast enough where it feels you're never being bored during the whole runtime. Yeah, what a wild production story for one of the most beautiful TV anime of the 90s.
Yeah, there's a lot that went into it, way more than even I thought. Because sometimes some of these, sometimes the prehistory can be kind of short or kind of straightforward, or there's not much there. But this one, there's a history there.
Yeah, it's enough that you could it would be the sort of thing where if you had an entire book or something about an anime studio's history, I feel it would be remiss if it did not include an entire chapter detailing what the fuck happened leading up to Escaflowne.
Yeah.
So with all that out of the way, we can move on to talking about our primary mecha. So yes, this is a fantasy world, but that doesn't mean that you cannot have giant robots in your fantasy world. That just means that the technology and the method in which they work has to, be different to a certain degree,
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. What is the phrase? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic? Sure, I guess this is basically magic.
Yeah.
But the mecha in the show, what they're referred to is they're known as Gaimalefs. I guess there's technically two and a half, I guess, designations. There's Melefs, which are basically you could say those are the short, the smallest possible size that you can make for giant robots in this world, that are more in line with kind of worker bots or something like that. Gaimalefs, meanwhile, are what you see most often in the show, where they are the very tall, basically mechanical knights.
Yeah.
With this being a fantasy setting, it makes the most sense that you wouldn't be getting mobile suit style foot soldiers. You would be getting what are essentially knights scaled up to 10 meters or something crazy.
Right, yeah.
But the 2.5, why I called it that is because there's at least one sort of variation on the type of Gaimalef, known as the Hispano Gaimalefs, which kind of refers to a lot more very specific, specially made units that not everyone can use, which applies to our titular mecha, the Escaflowne. That is an Hispano Gaimalef, a very light beige color with a gem on its left chest, has a cape, which is a lot more common with a lot of these Gaimalefs than you might think, because A, it's fantasy setting.
Yeah.
B, we've already established multiple times capes on mechs are cool.
They are cool, and it's cool here.
But Escaflowne, because of its origin as being an Hispano Gaimalef, it is an extremely valuable robot and kind of sought after, by plenty of enemies that just want to destroy it, because the only way it can be piloted is if someone essentially makes a blood pact with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like essentially takes their blood and like places it on the gemstone that is like attached to the Escaflowne's chest. That basically at that point means you are now its pilot, but also you have the unfortunate side effect of every time it takes damage or feels pain, you're gonna feel it too.
Which is very unfortunate, but sometimes you just gotta take those risks.
You definitely see the full extent of like what that's like during one episode, and it's pretty painful.
Yeah.
Least of all because it's like it's a situation where like the Escaflowne's not even under attack. It's like they literally need to like do repairs and fixes on it, so it's more like the equivalent of like having to do emergency surgery on someone without any anesthetics.
Ooh, yeah. It's not pretty. It's not.
But also, it's got one more trick up its sleeve, and it can turn into a fucking dragon.
Yeah, he can. I was gonna say he can Panzer Dragoon that shit, but I don't know if people know Panzer Dragoon anymore.
I would hope that they knew what Panzer Dragoon is, but I worry about the amount of people that would probably learn about it because of those shitty fucking remakes.
Oh, the bad remakes don't help. Oh.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the Dragon Form Escaflowne is pretty cool. And he even like kind of rides it. Like, how would you describe how he rides it? How the pilot rides?
It's like standing on the back with like kind of like rope harnesses holding onto it, like horse reins, I guess you could say, almost. Mm-hmm. But which is kind of crazy. The fact that like like all these Guy Malevs, like they operate under this sort of system that it's like almost like a cockpit, like you're wearing it like a suit of armor, but like you're more situated inside of like the torso with kind of like the pilot's head kind of lining up with where like the actual head of the robot is. But the transformation just like puts you like on the outside, like riding on top of it, standing and like using like reins to like direct it. Really, it's just the sort of thing where like, because all of these robot designs are by Shoji Kawamori, and the titular robot itself has a dragon transformation, it's like
oh
yeah, shit, he would try and fit that in there,
of course,
and actually have it function and work properly.
God, I should have put two and two together. Of course, he'd do that shit. It is a fantasy mecha show as well.
Especially wild part is that even when it's in its like normal form, you barely see anything in the Escaflowne's design that implies that it could turn into a dragon.
It just does.
Like it's extremely well hidden, those elements, until you see it transform for the first time, and you're like, oh shit, it could do that.
Oh, okay, sure. That's cool, actually.
That really is like the most important of like the robots in the show that needs to be discussed. The only other ones that we're talking about are like ones that you see show up fairly regularly as is, even though they're still quite outpaced in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like there's the Sherazade, which is like which is another Guy Malev, not an Hispano variant, and like doesn't have any fancy transformations of its own. But you know what? Like it's a damn good sword fighter because its pilot is extremely proficient at that, and still has a cape, kind of dark blue color scheme. Like even if it doesn't have anything in the way of like very fancy abilities, I do particularly like the design of the Sherazade.
It is pretty cool. I especially like the shoulder cape on it as well.
I honestly think it rocks the cape better than Escaflowne, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I think so. I kind of agree with you on that.
And then I guess like the other one that you see most often is the Alcaides, which are basically the mass-produced Guy Malevs of the Zybok Empire. Like outside of like the Hispano variants, it's like how a Guy Malev gets manufactured, kind of depends on place to place. The Zybok Empire is basically portrayed as being like an industrial hellhole, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It always looks pretty dour of like a civilization every time it goes over there. Like you never see a single ray of sunshine. But because of their advanced technology, that means they're able to produce these particular models of Guy Malev at an alarming pace and use it for all of like their various acts of conquest. And like the things that like kind of make them stand out and be particularly feared early on is that like it's kind of a transformation, but it's more like it's barely a transformation. It's just like a simple flight mode they engage, where it's like they just kind of like fuse like their legs together and like turn into like basically like a floating spike and just like travel through the air at high speeds. But the thing that makes them more terrifying to everyone is that they are all equipped with stealth camouflage.
Yeah, that is one of the more terrifying things about them, and will be a problem in some episodes.
Like, these assholes got, like, on top of being able to mass produce these robots, they also mass produced Harry's cloak of invisibility and just weaponized it. Put it to better use than that fucking kid did. That's pretty much like the main robots we're talking about. Oh yeah, I guess one last thing about I'll say this is that, like, there is one model of it that you get very familiar with, and that's largely because it's piloted by an important character and it has a red paint job compared to everyone. However, unlike a certain character that pilots a red mecha and is somewhat affable, this one is a fucking psychopath.
Yeah, we'll get to that character when we start talking about the primary characters, like right now.
Yeah. Get into our main cast with our heroine Hitomi Kanzaki, the high school girl who has like thoughts of romance and also happens to be something of a fortune teller. Like that's like part of her personality starting out, on top of being on like her school's like track and field team, so it's like she's also athletic on top of that. But she tends to get asked by a lot of her friends, it's like, hey, you mind doing like a reading for me or something, because like she has like a pack of tarot cards and has like always had like various hunches and like kind of like sixth sense kind of feelings when growing up that kind of led her to being like, yeah, she'll just try, like reading tarot cards to figure out someone's fortune just for the hell of it. Until, of course, like, she ends up getting whisked away to Gaia, and because of, like, the rules of, like, this particular world compared to Earth, is that it ends up amplifying those particular aspects of her quite a lot more, and to, like, a somewhat, at least for her, to, like, a somewhat terrifying degree.
Yeah, she becomes more, her powers start, like, become more strengthened when she's there, and she doesn't get a robot of herself, but she's still a character that gets a lot of agency.
She still has like quite a lot of like growth that she has to go to, and like struggles that, like at various points kind of leads her to feeling like that she's making things worse, because on top of the fact that like she gets whisked away to another world and just wants to go home. This happened on the day when she was hoping to like confess and like get a first kiss from like her senpai who she had a crush on. Like, those feelings of love are basically all offset by like feelings of anxiety, and is basically like her main like character flaw that she is needing to overcome, because I mean, like, with all that shit going wrong, imagine being taken to another place where you always feel to everyone like an outsider. Like that's certainly something that like doesn't get dwelled on nearly as much in like any other isekai when you think about it.
Oh yeah,
like usually the assimilation into like that kind of social structure, or whatever, is just kind of like done in the background and we don't think about it. But Hitomi always just kind of feels like she's just like the high school girl that came from the Mystic Moon, as the people of Gaia called it.
Yeah.
And, does whatever she can to help with, like, least of all with, like, all of her different, like, divination abilities. But it's figuring out how to actually use those well that, like, it takes her a while to figure out. Like, I'll admit, I do like Hitomi, like, as far as like a character in the end, but I did always feel like, at least starting out, as soon as we got to Gaia, that it was like she did feel a whole lot like a kind of a tag along.
Yeah, because she's just a high school girl. Like, that's the main thing. Is other than their divination powers, she doesn't have anything that makes her special. She's not like an expert in magic or like in fighting or anything. So a lot of the time she's just there for the ride or just trying her best.
But yeah, it's sort of thing where it was like, it took me quite a few episodes to warm up to the idea that Hitomi was ultimately the protagonist, and then just kind of seeing like the arc that she goes throughout the entire series, it became clear that like, yeah, like she changes quite a bit as a person as it goes on, and I felt like her presence was ultimately earned.
Oh yeah, like by the end of the show, you'll understand why she's there, and she's as pivotal as like anybody else in the show.
Yeah, like as much as any of these other characters who make an immediately stronger impression when you first see them, such as our other protagonist, Von Slanzar de Fanel. Wait, Von. Whoa, deja vu. Anyway.
Yeah, no relation.
I swear, we did not plan this when we did Gun Egg Sword last week and then went to this.
I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it.
But yes, Von, the crown prince and by definition later king of Fenelia because his kingdom burned down and he was the only fucking survivor. Oh, wait, no, he wasn't the only survivor. I remembered. His fucking cat girlfriend also survived.
And Vaughn is I'd call him your hot-blooded hero.
Oh, yeah. He is super gung-ho about, like, trying to avenge his kingdom after it was, like, razed to the ground by Zybok. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, when your character is voiced by Tomokazu Seki, it's no wonder. Yeah, we got another famous voice actor that was on the show. And it's like... This is always an interesting one when I realized that it was Tomokazu Seki because compared to like some of his other roles, is like I feel like I don't remember there being as many moments in Escaflowne where like he is getting as like hot-blooded yelling as he does in some of his like more recognizable roles.
Yeah,
it's a lot more like speaking normally in ways where like it doesn't like hit me immediately that's him. It's kind of similar where it's like there's another anime that was a couple years after this called Gasaraki, where the main character was voiced by Nobuyuki Hiyama. And you would never fucking know it was him because he almost never shouts in the way that you expect like Nobuyuki Hiyama's like voice to sound when he like gets that angry, because it's like it's like the casting director was like, okay, Hiyama, do your best Rei Ayanami impression.
Oh.
Okay, good. That's your character.
Oh, like a more subdued. I can't.
Yeah.
That's weird. I can't.
It's really weird, but he does a good job with it, and Seki as well does a good job as Vaughn. Because he still obviously, like I said, he has his moments of being like, like kind of like the hot-blooded, like action-focused kind of character, but he also has like plenty of moments where he is like feeling a lot of like intense pain and emotions of all sorts. Like he's able to like experience like the full range of like the human emotional spectrum in like pretty extreme ways. But that's what makes him good as a character. And he is the pilot of Escaflowne. Like he is the one who has basically made the pact with it to be able to pilot it, and is having to basically keep it out of Zybok's hands, because the whole reason Fenelia got burned to the ground is because they specifically wanted to get that guy Malev out of the picture, because it is like having it around is going to like throw like a wrench in their plans for creating their ideal future. And as you might imagine, with all like what this show has going on as far as like making it appealing to like shoujo demographics, having like an aspect of like love and romance mixed in, you can tell that there's a bit of that, between Hitomi and Vaughn. Although they really go out of their way to make like these sort of like the love web, I'm going to call it. It's not even really a triangle at this point. It's like really fucking complex.
Yeah. It's all over the place.
At least with like Hitomi and Vaughn, is like there's a very clear friction between them at the start, considering that like their first meeting is when Vaughn is fighting a dragon on like the high school track that that Hitomi was practicing on, and is otherwise pretty rude to start. But it obviously becomes a lot more entwined when Hitomi's like premonitions and like divination abilities basically brings her into situations where she actually like has to go out of her way to like help Vaughn and like warn him of any danger that might risk him his life. But then, like as we said, like the love web throughout like this show gets pretty complex, because then we get our other love interest for Hitomi, Alan Shezar, a character that when first introduced is very clearly designed to make Hitomi think that it reminds her of her senpai.
Oh yeah.
Like they have the exact same face and like similar bangs, although like Amano, like the senpai, I'm pretty sure like his bangs are even more dead on for like that exact same style of like split part bangs that like every character in the 90s had.
Oh yeah.
Alan's meanwhile is at least like closer to being more like a blonde Sephiroth.
Mm-hmm. He's also way more of a pretty boy than Van.
Yeah, you could tell who they made this character for.
Yeah. Oh, this is for they were just looking directly at the screen saying, this is for you, the Fujoshi audience. Actually, I feel like both Van and Alan appeal to the Fujoshis, I bet, anyways.
Especially when you put those two together, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But even so, it's like, you can tell, like, that like, Alan as somewhat of like opposite character in some ways compared to Vaughn, where like Alan is significantly more level-headed, very, very polite. I mean, like, so much so to the point where I feel like some of that, this especially joggled my memory again when we were watching our highlight episodes that we were gonna like have for our discussion, is that some of the way that like Alan like talks to Hitomi, like a lot of it is like very respectful and kind, as you would expect, but considering the kind of fantasy setting this is and how it's modeled after like a lot of aspects of medieval times, and we know how backwards a lot of like things can be socially, then is like there are some aspects of Alan's character where you look at, he is not as perfect as he appears to be, because some of like how he talks to or like treats Hitomi is the sort of thing where like it's meant well, but you could tell it comes off as low-key sexist.
Yeah, he comes off as pretty like chauvinistic or sexist in a lot of ways sometimes.
But again, not in the way that's like overly prideful. It's more like just the result of him being like, well, this is what a gentleman should do, right? Like that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't excuse the fact that he has like his own band of mercenaries that are significantly more uncouth than he is. I have no idea how he keeps them under control, but I guess that's all that charisma.
Yeah, the charisma and probably money is my guess.
Well, that too. I mean, yeah, because he is from a royal family as well, and even like had a had a love interest of his own, like a princess that unfortunately has been betrothed to like a separate merchant. We're not really talking about that character, but rest assured that that merchant is also a very important character, even if he looks like a lazy slob. It's kind of the thing when you look at this. It's like Hitomi, Vaughn, and Alan. On the surface, you're like, cool, that's your love triangle. Least of all because Alan just reminds Hitomi of the other person that she was wanting to get a kiss from. Mm-hmm. But then you realize, oh no, this isn't a love triangle. This is like two couples and a third wheel occupying both slots. Because Vaughn has like Meryl, which is like the weird cat girl that is like, who is like extremely infatuated with Vaughn, and is like very cat-like in her disapproval of Hitomi being around them. And then like Alan has like, I'm forgetting the name of the princess, admittedly, that he was in love with, but that's also the sort of thing where it's like the like Hitomi crushing on Alan also has like a knock-on effect of like being somewhat unpleasant in like the other princess's eyes, because it was like, he was mine first. What the hell? See what we mean when we talked about how love is fucking complex in this show?
Yeah, it's all over the place here. This is the other Shojo influence, because it's like there's romance all over the place. Romance is a big thing in this show, and you're going to see it everywhere.
Yeah, girls love the idea of like stories of like characters falling in love, and unfortunately that means that love has to be the most complicated thing imaginable.
Oh yeah, and like we're just scratching the surface and all that.
But at least we do have some characters, mostly on like the side of the antagonist, that don't have to worry about this romance crap, such as Dylan Dow Albato. Our resident fucking psychopath.
A very pretty psychopath tlike
Yeah, which really makes all of his acts of cruelty really uncomfortable when you put it down. He loves murder, he loves burning things to the ground, he loves being mean to his subordinates, least of all like the subordinates he has that are also pretty boys.
Yeah. Oh, there's some Fujoshi are into all of that too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Delando is as evil as you come. He's someone who is like, he's pretty on the surface, but inside he is like as filthy as they come, with just how evil he kind of is. He's like the evilest person in the entire show.
Even his voice is like you can very clearly tell that is like a woman speaking in as much of a masculine intonation as possible, like kind of a deep husky voice, which may or may not be like some sort of clue as to like what Dylan Dow's origins are, because it's a very late reveal as far as like what Dylan Dow's deal is, but when you find out what it is, you're like, that is horrific.
Oh, that's...
I don't think that justifies the psychopath tendencies, but like...
Holy shit.
That is fucked.
Yeah, that's like, holy shit. Oh.
It's like, hey, Dornkirk, Isaac, like, I know your whole deal with, like, kind of, like, this plan of conquest is that you can, like, see the future and you're trying to create, like, your ideal future of no uncertainty. Yeah, do you think that machine could help you with your judge of character? Because I think this asshole would do more than enough damage to, like, ruin that possibility.
Probably.
But at least there's another character on the villain side that is significantly more level-headed and competent, and that's Fulken. Fulken Lacour de Fanel. Yes, that last name is similar to another character because he is Vaughn's lost older brother. Like, he disappeared during a rite that was basically part of the Kingdom of Fenalia, where it's like, the rites of kings is that they have to go and slay a dragon, you know, bring back, I think, like, its heart or something, and, like, after going through all that process and, like, making a pact with the Escaflowne, that basically marks them as, like, the new king. Fulken never came back. Instead was found by Dornkirk and, like, brought into the Zybok Empire, and is now bent on not only, like, bringing Dornkirk's plan to fruition, but also trying best as he can to bring Vaughn to his side. And as you might imagine, Vaughn does not want any of that.
He is very against that, but Fulken's like, nah, you should join, though. No, trust me, this is kind of rules being on this side, man.
Yeah, also, look at my guile hair. Look at my tear mark underneath my eye.
Check out this cool...
Don't it make me look cool?
Check out these cool wings I got.
Yeah, it's got fucking angel wings.
Of course, yeah. Of course he does.
Yeah, angels do also factor into this, by the way.
Yeah.
With all, like, the shoujo aesthetics, why wouldn't you have something as, like, beautiful as the not biblically accurate angels?
It makes perfect sense for the show and the aesthetic they're going with.
Yeah, Fulken, like, for the most part, like, doesn't really get, like, involved in any of, like, the... For large parts of it anyway, it doesn't really get, like, involved in, like, any of, like, the mecha fights themselves. Mm-hmm. His position is very much that of being, like, the strategist for the villains. And is the sort of thing where it's like, yeah, and just thinking again about, like, all, like, the characters involved in Zybok's plan, it's like if Dornkirk really did want everything to go the way he wanted, like, he just only needed to, like, really rely on Fulken more than anything and not involve anyone so unstable like Dylan Dow. Like, geez, like, having that apple drop on his fucking head did more to, like, affect, like, his, like, judge of character than just helping him realize that gravity exists.
Yeah, this is why you shouldn't have psychopathic Starscream on your team. For many reasons.
Yeah. I'm also surprised he didn't catch on to, like, the fact that I was making an Isaac Newton reference, because that's actually who Dornkirk is.
I actually kind of forgot about that. Oh my god. How did I forget that?
Because they never say it outright in the show. That was only something that Shoji Kawamori just said offhand and be like, oh yeah,
he's Isaac.
Yeah, that's Isaac Newton. Like, he basically, he's the other isekai protagonist where he fucking, like went over to Gaia the instant that he, as Isaac Newton, died on our Earth.
Yeah.
He's the, like...
Oh my god.
And all you have to go off on are, like, little hints, like, very out-of-the-way hints that imply that's who it is. Like, I, for whatever reason, never caught on to those, so it's only when I saw that Kawamori basically said as much, I'm like... That is one of the best, dumbest fucking ideas ever. I love it.
Yeah, this is not a spoiler, by the way. This is just something you have to look outside of the show or pick up on the hints.
Yeah.
I just remember, you just unlocked a memory of mine, a latent memory, where I just remember looking up the show again, like, years later, and then just finding out, wait, that was Isaac Newton? That's so fucking stupid. Positively. That's so fucking stupid positive, because Jesus Christ,
yes.
Sure. That kind of rules.
Yeah, it's not quite on the same level as that one Aquarion spoiler that I went on about, but you know the one.
Yes.
It's up there.
It's up there.
So that's our characters. That's our robots. Why do we recommend this anime?
Yes, why do we want people to watch this one?
Well, as stated before, yes, this anime is an isekai, but it is an isekai in the classical sense. There's none of that shallow wish fulfillment tripe. Instead, it is like it is a proper journey into another world where characters undergo like a personal journey of their own, meet all kinds of different people, like classic storytelling in a fantasy world, but one that has giant robots. Not the first time it happens. Admittedly, Dunbean exists already, but this is certainly like one of the best of those for me personally. Least of all for its production and visuals. I generally do feel this is one of the most gorgeous TV anime of the 90s. Like, tail end in the medium's use of traditional cell animation, and that's even with the fact that they still make use of like some digital effects, but like in very spare use cases that you almost don't recognize it as like being present at the time. Everything else from like the characters, the action scenes, the giant robots, all of it very beautifully drawn. You can imagine it being especially a treat if you're watching this at 1080p on like HD versions and such. And kind of getting back to what I had mentioned about like during the prehistory, what I think really helps make this show as appealing as it is how it splits the difference between appealing to like the two different like gender demographics, because we get all the giant robot battles and like politicking that kind of exists in the world of Gaia is like, that obviously applies to the shonen demographic. That's the Gundam audience. But then you have the other half that is for the Shojo, like the female audience that want to see like pretty boys and like very complex, tangled like tales of love and all kinds of stuff like that. Angel motifs, things like that. And like any other director, you could tell it would have skewed so hard towards one or the other. Like we know when Imagawa directed Escaflowne would have been a lot more masculine, but I could imagine that like a even more feminine Escaflowne would in some ways feel just as off as well. If that ended up happening. Even so, like I think even with like the difference being split, this is definitely like one of those kind of shows where like, based on like what experiences I've had like talking with like female anime fans, that like the ones that I met that have watched Escaflowne really love Escaflowne.
Escaflowne is something you show to someone who thinks they might not be into mechs but love fantasy, and they'd be like, oh, maybe I do like mechs actually.
Even if it doesn't prove to be like a ultimate like gateway into another genre for them, it is like, it's like the blending of those elements is so good that it still accomplishes its initial goal that the director had of like making it so that it could pull in a larger female audience than it would have if it went with the like very original like ideas that they had in like the first few years of production. And with the pacing, like we mentioned, it used to be like 39 episodes in some of its original drafts and was 26 in the end. Like it still manages to make good use of that pacing all the same, even if it's like I agree with you where it feels like it does get a bit rushed by the end. Although I think I only felt that when it got to the actual final episode itself. But that might have been just combined with the fact that like where it was in like the sort of the escalation of the finale, that it felt like the world was just going mad. And I think that did not help the feeling of like it feels like you're trying to rush towards an ending because you forgot that you had this like episode limit.
I think it's only you really feel it during the finale, but otherwise like you said, it is paced pretty well for for like 90% of it, I feel.
Which is still a really good batting average compared to like other anime that you could get that like have pacing problems of note,
Trust me, I'm currently going through like the original Gundam 0079, the series, with my partner, and man, that's got a lot of pacing issues that I forgot about.
This at least handles it a lot better, because whereas OG Gundam like has like its normal pacing that kind of drags in spots before eventually speeding up for like the final 10.
Yeah.
Like Escaflowne, meanwhile, it's a fast pace starting out, but it is like at least level and consistent until it spikes up in the final episode.
Yeah, which is not the worst thing, honestly. Like, it's not like the last episode like shits the bed or anything. It just feels a little faster than anything that comes before.
Yeah, and thankfully it's not like the episode has to end in a way where it's like, oh, we're suddenly canceled, so we have to bullshit an ending, and then we'll make a movie or like or an OVA episode afterwards that gives the real ending.
Yeah.
That happens more often than you think.
Yeah, it doesn't pull an original FMA fucking goddamn bullshit.
Yeah.
And sorry.
Well, I mean, I was also thinking of Leisner.
Oh.
Because that also got hit with that pretty bad.
Yeah, I hate it. It's unfortunate when that happens to an anime.
All the better that Escaflowne, like an idea that had been like sitting around its sunrise for several years, getting refined and whatnot, actually managed to have like a fantastic anime that made you think that production on it only started a couple years prior and not like half a decade. So where to watch Escaflowne then?
Yeah, where would we watch it?
I would say it's not as easy as it should be, damn it. I guess like for context, as with like distribution for Escaflowne, I guess throughout its history, is that it's had 2 dubs. First was like by Bandai Visual, which like, yeah, Bandai used to have like its own international like branch that was for like, you know, like international distribution of various anime properties. But then the second one was Funimation. Like they did like their own dub of Escaflowne years and years after the fact, and obviously like they have long since been absorbed into Crunchyroll, and like a lot of like their back catalog being like having pages for shows that they had listed on Crunchyroll. And like some of the shows we've talked about as far as where to watch them, this is another case where despite having a Crunchyroll page, you cannot watch any fucking episodes on there. So it's like the like one of the more easier or like convenient streaming options possible for people that want to get their anime that way. Yeah, they can't do that. So like the remaining choices are to essentially acquire secondhand copies for like Blu-rays or DVDs. Or, as we always say, sail the high seas.
Also, unless you're willing to pay like $100 for those physical copies, I suggest what we just mentioned.
Yeah, that's true. The prices are always like pretty high on those regardless, but which is why I don't make a point to like give like a look at what those prices actually are. Because I basically say those with the assumption of like, if you're someone that cares that much about your physical copies of like old media, then you probably have more disposable income than either of us.
Follow your heart in the end of the day. Do what you think is best for you, especially if this show sounds interesting to you.
So with that out of the way, we can transition into our spoiler discussion.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. It took a little bit of a while to figure out what like our highlight episodes are going to be, because this is quite a narrative focused episode. Everything flows smoothly from one plot point to the other. Like as you'll find, this is not going to be this sort of discussion where we have like very isolated one-off episodes, but we at least found something that's worth talking about. And if like what we've said about Escaflowne interests you already, then like stop this episode and like go watch it right now. Like get a hold of it however you can. Otherwise, see you on the other side as we talk about 2 episodes from like the early part of the story. Yeah. See you then.
See everyone.
All right, I don't have anything like witty or clever to say that's in relation to the show, so let's just go straight into episode 4.
Yeah, so Delandel's a psycho. Anyways, let's...
Yeah, so episode 4, The Diabolical Adonis. This takes place like very early on in the series after the first 3 episodes where by this point you've gotten the setup on who Hitomi is, like what her life was like on Earth before meeting Vaughn, getting whisked away to Gaia, witnessing the fall of Fenelia, and the introduction of Alan Shezar and his company of mercs. And now we've got a premonition of Zybok's next attack on the fortress that Alan and his company are stationed at, and desperately trying to get everyone to believe her that this is true. Because, like ever since moving to Gaia, anytime these premonitions happen, they're very torturous experiences for Hitomi. Like, she does not have a good time anytime she sees these. Although, considering what she's going through and, like, kind of what is revealed as the story goes on, it's kind of self-inflicted when you think about it.
Yeah, a little self-inflicted, and causes her a lot of pain.
Yeah, least of all because, like, you know, Alan's, like, trying to be, like, very polite and comforting, but obviously he's not believing that, like, she actually has a premonition that's going to come true. Like, this whole idea that, like, you know, invisible giants are going to come and, like, burn the fortress to the ground, much like Finalia. And by this point as well, like, as the show presented itself, initially it was assumed that, like, Vaughn and Hitomi were the only ones that managed to escape from Finalia as it was burning down. But no, the other survivor shows up, and that's Meryl, the cat girl child that Alan's men found, like, kind of snooping around outside the fortress. They bring her in all tied up, and, like, it's heartwarming to find out she survived after the whole country was razed to the ground, but a bit humorous seeing her try and leap towards Vaughn with her arms still tied behind her back because she instinctually just wants to immediately go to his side.
It is really cute, actually.
Like even though, but again, she is 100% a cat.
Yeah.
In personality.
She's not a girl who happens to be a cat. She is a cat girl with everything that entails.
Yes. Like, oh man, there's one scene later on that, like, exemplifies that so much more than this, but we'll get to that in a bit. But, like, well, like, after this reunion, we kind of go back to like the scheming and politicking between, like, between members of, like, the Zybok Empire. Like, they need to get Escaflowne, they need to capture it and, like, ascertain its threats. Fulkin is obviously being, like, very, like calm and, like, cautious about the whole thing, whereas Dylan Dow does not care at all about these political machinations and other bullshit. He just wants to murder shit.
Yeah,
I kind of respect it.
Oh, you absolute psycho. I kind of love how much of a psycho he is. I mean, good for everybody needs a goal, and his is just burning things to the ground.
And he's like, as long as we do it when invisible, who will be able to tell, like, if it was us that did it?
Yeah,
because that's what all of these political machinations are, like, regarding the Zybok Empire, is that they're doing all this shit, but the news hasn't gotten out to all of Gaia that, oh, this empire is fucking evil. They are still trying to, like, play the game of, like, uphold, like, maintaining public appearances, and trying to just be like, oh yeah, Finale is burning. Oh, that wasn't us. That was something else.
We weren't involved at all. Honest.
Which, like, that aspect of Zybok's plan, you see it play into, like, a lot more episodes, like, kind of during the middle of the series, and realizing just how much their scheming and influence is, like, getting in the way of the heroes.
Yeah.
But, like, later that evening, because of the intensity of, like, of Hitomi's premonitions, she collapses because she, like, has a fever now. And so Alan is taking care of her. Meryl's also getting taken care of by Vaughn. Vaughn kind of notices something that, like, I guess because of, like, the flora outside of the fortress, and kind of brushing up and scraping against it, kind of realizes that, like, you know, like, some poison from, like, the plants that they had to, like, go through kind of rubbed off on them. And Vaughn just leaves very stern-like, in a way that, like, almost makes Hitomi think that she upset him or something. But, like, no, he's specifically going to make some medicine. But Alan's still going to be there for a little while to tend to, like, some bedside manner. He says that he wouldn't dream of leaving her to the tender mercies of his men. Yeah, I'd fucking hope so. This would be a very different anime with that kind of implication.
Yeah, have you seen the people he surrounds himself with? I wouldn't either. Jeez. How did you get it?
One of them's a fucking skinhead with a knife and a scar, and I'm pretty sure he licks his knife in one scene. Like, everyone is lucky that this pretty boy is able to keep these rogues in line.
Yeah, it's kind of so, like, how does Alan even get involved with people like this? It's money. He paid them a lot of money in charisma. Yeah, but anyways.
I like to think part of it is just like everyone like deep down thinks, oh, he is so hot. I'll follow him.
I mean,
it's the Char Aznabel syndrome.
Yeah, where they're just like, shit, he's hot.
Yeah. It's like what's that chart of like that is like a vertical chart of like kind of like bracketing like different parts of Char, where like most of it is like, oh man, he's so hot, but then there's the tiny one of like, holy shit, you're a hot mess. It's like, I feel like that's Alan.
That is absolutely Alan. Like, we did get into him, but there's more to his character than we described, and he's kind of a mess of a character.
Like, I only got into like talking about like the lightest amount of like casual sexism that comes with like his like concern and treatment of Hitomi, and it admittedly gets way worse as things go on, and you gotta realize what he's going through.
Oh, my man is going through a lot. He's got some issues, let's say.
Yeah. Least of all because his little sister went missing one day and has never come back. Like he still chooses to believe that she's probably alive out there, but he's still never been able to find her. One nice detail though about this anime, I mean, like, you see it in this episode, but it persists throughout. Because of the fantasy setting and how it's a lot more, like medieval influenced, everyone except Hitomi uses the more antiquated titles for like parents or siblings in the Japanese script. Like, everyone these days when they watch anime, like, I'm like listening to like the Japanese voice acting, I'm sure like they've become very familiar with what the words of like Okasan or Oji-san, like all that stuff, like would sound like, One-chan, One-chan.
Yeah.
But no, in Japan, there actually are other like more formal, sometimes antiquated like titles or honorifics that you also give for like referring to like your mother and father, or even like your brother. Although I don't know if this was a mistake or not. I think Alan did technically refer to like his little sister as the Imoto, so I don't know if that's a flub or not. I'm not sure. But everyone else is pretty consistent, and I appreciate that little touch just to make it feel a lot more of like a kind of like a real believable setting.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I saw that when you mentioned that, and it's like, yeah, it's a small touch, but it implies a level of thought that they put into this then that you don't really get in isekai slop nowadays, where they were really thinking about the world and what it means to live here and how people would refer to each other.
It's the sort of thing that kind of, as you say, would have been great to have as like a JRPG or strategy RPG back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Too bad that never happened.
No, instead we got a shitty action RPG that looks bad from what I saw.
Yeah, that's a shame. But yeah, kind of as things go on, as Hitomi is like, resting from the fever, like the whole conversation that keeps going on between her and Alan shows that like not only is her anxiety still not going away, but like the fact that she realizes immediately that Alan just looks like her senpai and is already falling for this new guy already. It's like yeah, girl, you're not just fickle. You're about to be another third wheel in a different person's relationship. You really cannot help yourself, girl.
She can absolutely not. This is just a web of relationships here. It's just everywhere.
Mm-hmm. But at least after like that conversation between the two of them, I'd say that Alan, like in this episode, is willing to believe Hitomi's premonition, at least for this once, by like having the rest of the company basically kind of like mount up defenses around the fortress, in the event that like, if an attack is going to happen, like what happened at Fenelia, while also, telling like his second in command is like, all right, but just in case, go and prep the crusade. It's not that kind of crusade. No. This one's way cooler.
It's a cooler crusade, which we'll see later.
Yeah. But then we're back in Hitomi's room, Hitomi and Meryl's, and probably like the one comedic scene of this episode that gets to the heart of what we keep talking about with Meryl, and that she is 100% cat despite being a cat girl. This is the perfect example of how having a cat girl as a girlfriend would have all the potential downsides of owning a cat.
Yeah, she is as fickle as a cat, and even she doesn't like anybody, she'll let you know it.
Yeah, especially when it's like she realizes, hang on a minute, why did I get laid out on the bench?
Yeah.
And then proceeds to just hiss even louder in Hitomi's direction.
Mm-hmm.
I like this idea. This is the kind of joke for like characterization I actually like, where it leans more into the idea of like, oh yeah, if you just like take like a girl and like give them animal ears, they're not just going like, it's not gonna be an accessory. It's gonna be a signifier that like, no, their personality is more of that animal than it is person.
Yeah.
Like if someone had a fox girl for a girlfriend, have fun with a girl that like shits and pisses all over the house because they cannot be housebroken.
Yeah, it's a good thing it's a cat, not that. Then, for
yeah,
Fat's sake.
definitely. Yeah, cute as foxes can be, you know, like cat software on dog hardware, wherever the hell the description goes. But whatever. Dylan Dao's assault with his invisible giants has begun. The fortress is now under siege. Everyone is getting fucked up by invisible Gaimalefs. Like, this is what we were talking about, how this show is constantly like splitting the difference between like elements that are designed to like appeal towards like guys and girls. This is obviously the part where it's like appealing more to the guys, because we are getting like some heavy duty destruction.
Yeah.
And as like Zybok goons are just laying waste to the fortress, like shooting out like extending spikes from their hands to like impale like dudes inside their own Gaimalefs. It's rough, least of all when this psycho's on the field leading the charge.
Yeah, and we get a scene with Van and Alan a bit later that kind of, in case you didn't realize how different their personalities are, Van was he was ready to just go in, fight, and die. And Alan's like, no, don't do that. That's stupid. I mean, he doesn't say that, but he basically says it.
Yeah. The sentiment is more or less that, like, you're the survivor of your kingdom. You're basically its king. That means, like, you have an obligation to keep living so that your country does not fade away.
Yeah.
So, like, fucking get inside and board the crusade. Like, we already stashed the Escaflowne on there. And what is the crusade? Why it's just a fucking airship.
It's an airship.
With an amazing launch sequence as it shoots out the side of a waterfall.
It's just a JRPG airship. It's great.
I remember like having the same thoughts you did of thinking like, yeah, this would have been like a great sort of like setting to like adapt into like a proper RPG, because the airship just fits that so well. You could immediately see how it's like, yeah, you would have this, and then you get access to the world map, and then you just go from place to place, like it's like 90s JRPGs on like your Super Famicom or PS1.
Yeah.
You know,
it would have fit perfect.
But it's pretty good just because it's like it shows how short-sighted Dylan Dao is and like so focused on murdering everything in front of him that it's like it takes Falcon to be like, bro, you're only focusing on what's in front of you. Like, where do you think that like they might escape to?
Yeah.
You have not covered their exit points. They are literally exiting out of the fucking waterfall.
Yeah.
So like the episode is reaching its conclusion pretty fast. The crusade has launched. Dylan Dao is giving chase, but not before we actually get the real first introduction of Escaflowne's ability to take flight by turning into a fucking dragon. And all this while Dylan Dao and Alan are having a fucking sword fight in their Gaimalefs on top of the airship as this happens.
It's just a nice set piece. And I think this is the first time we get to see him turning his mech into a dragon, and it's a cool sequence.
Yeah, it's definitely the first time because you get to see like in like maximum detail like all the shots of like the key animation for like the different body parts of the Escaflowne like turning and like attaching to each other to like, you know, like the legs basically like forming the tail. You kind of realize like on the design that it's like that there were like tiny little almost like T-Rex arms, I guess you could say, that were like kind of folded on itself around the chest piece until you realize, oh wait, that's actually the those are actually supposed to be like the front like legs, like the arms of the dragon itself, and like the wings becoming being formed from the cape. Like it's great, and like the whole reason for the transformation is that Vaughn is like just going to like lure away Dylan Dao and his goon so that everyone on the crusade can escape. You know, at least of all because of like the damage that they've already taken to the ship itself and need to do repairs. But as the battle's finishing, I do have to give props to Alan for like a well-placed Tetsuzanko knocking Dylan Dow off the fucking airship. It's straight up the fucking, like, that kind of shoulder check. Dylan Dow's goons are 10 years too early to beat him.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I always appreciate a good shoulder check.
But now the Crusade is able to make its escape. Surely this won't lead to Alan needing to rescue Vaughn in return as he gets captured playing the decoy. Sarcasm.
Gee, I wonder.
That was a fun episode to like kind of revisit, just because I do remember the Crusade's launch and the introduction of like Escaflowne's dragon form being like a pretty good like high point early on. Episode 5, however, The Seal of the Brothers, I'd say is the episode that made me warm up to the idea that Hitomi is indeed the protagonist of this show.
Yeah.
So, how this episode starts, to no one's surprise, Vaughn's distraction does not end well for him as Dylan Dow has him quartered and captured. Really, like, those stealth cloaks are fucking cheating. like, no wonder they're able to just, like, get up and, like, you know, grab him from behind. Just so, like, Dylan Dow, even before bringing him back to the floating fortress, can just be like, nah, I'm just going to beat the shit out of him for a couple minutes. I just want to do this.
Yeah, and, like, I think he would have just straight up killed Vaughn there if it wasn't for Fokin going, yo, don't stop that.
Yeah, and this is before it's fully revealed that, like, you know, they're brothers, which is like, that's a good reason why he would be like, bro, don't fucking kill him. Do not kill my brother. What are you doing?
It's amazing they send Dylan Dahl out without a leash or someone just going, keeping check on him. They just kind of let him do whatever he wants most of the time.
Again, really makes me question how, like, Dornkirk is, like, any sort of good judge of characters, considering he is like a device that shows him possible futures.
Maybe he just thinks it's funny. Maybe he just thinks Dylan Dahl's just really funny.
I guess. Old bastard. Anyway, now we're back to the Crusade, carrying Hitomi, Meryl, Alan, and 7 of his men, as most of them got fucking murdered at the fortress trying to defend it. So now they have to stage a rescue operation for Vaughn. You know, the odds aren't looking very good, considering that they're trying to find like a floating fortress that also, much like the Gaimalovs that they send out, also have the ability to like camouflage itself pretty well. So they're like, how are they going to do this? Well, it's going to start with Hitomi being the first to contribute and being extremely adamant about like going through with like her plan in order to figure this out. Considering that Gaia has amplified the accuracy and strength of her premonitions, like she's absolutely wanting to prove that she can find Vaughn's location with her talents and like convince Alan and everyone else that like the last prediction wasn't a fluke, because that was the important thing from last episode. Like he was willing to believe it in that moment as like just as a just in case type of thing. But he's still not convinced yet. There's a scene right after this that is like really intense and like it makes you kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't make me feel anxious like Hitomi does, but it does make me feel bad for her, what she is feeling.
Yeah,
because it's like you know what the general idea with like what the methods are of like a traditional psychic does, you know, like in our real world terms. Like it's not about like saying what they actually know is going to happen. It's saying something that's like general enough and appealing enough to the person they're saying to. It's like the same bullshit with why like AI descriptions or like chatbots are always saying shit that sound like they're trying to groom you.
Yeah, because it's either like they just want you to tell you what you want to hear. They don't want to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Whereas Hitomi realizes that like everything that she is divining with her tarot cards or like other methods of like premonitions are actually coming true. And some of them are so horrible that she is caught between like that dilemma of like, oh, do I do like the con men psychic route of like saying what they want to hear, or do I just tell them the harsh truth? And it's especially tough because Alan is sitting across from her, because like this whole scene is about her trying to prove that like she can use her divination to learn more about Alan's backstory, about stuff that he has not told her or even any of his men. And he has this very stern, almost ready to be angry look on his face. And it terrifies the poor girl.
Yeah, he doesn't look happy by any of it.
But at least, like, true to his personality, he keeps a lid on it and, like, goes, all right, I've heard enough. You've convinced me. He's at least willing to like not, like have it drive a wedge between them because he's like, okay, there is something to this. She's the real deal. Now we need to see like what her powers can do to help us actually find Vaughn.
Yeah.
But until we get there, we're back at the floating fortress after Vaughn has been captured. Falcon inexplicably manages to open up Escaflowne itself to get Vaughn out of the cockpit. Because he just cuts his thumb and puts his blood on the gemstone. Like, again, like by this point, like we already said as much outside of spoilers, but if you were watching this completely blind, these were intended to be like signs leading up to it that is like, oh, there is a familial connection between these two.
Yeah.
Because this is the first reuniting between Falcon and Vaughn, and he wants to bring Vaughn to his side one way or the other, even if Vaughn is gonna try and kill himself now that he is a prisoner.
Holy shit.
He really does go to some extreme measures in desperate situations like this.
I forgot how intense Vaughn can be at times, especially when he puts a fucking sword to his throat.
Like Tomokazu Seki, really good casting for him, even though like he is not like doing any sort of like line delivery that you would expect from his more prominent roles. Like he is really channeling like the energy of like a young man who is basically going through very extreme emotional duress.
Yeah.
So the next part of Hitomi's plan, now that she has convinced everyone on the crusade that like her divination skills are the real thing, especially since, Gaia basically makes it more real than it's ever been. She takes out a pendant of hers, which has also been something that like she has used frequently, is almost like dowsing, I guess, in a way, like always like kind of hovering it over like an image or a map or something like that, and like having it swing around until like it eventually like focuses in on an area that like ties into like whatever it is that her mind is focusing on. In which case, like they're trying to use it to figure out Vaughn's location by hovering it over a map. It's taking a while, but kind of showing like the amount of trust that everyone on the crusade has in her at the moment. You see Alan and even Meryl, least of all because she is invested in wanting to see Vaughn return safely, basically like kind of like putting their hands on top of each other as Hitomi was holding the pendant and moving it around. It's like it's not too dissimilar from like the kind of shit you do with like a Ouija board now that I think about it. But again, it at least proves accurate.
Yeah. It's enough to like show them where Vaughn is.
But I do like that like just everything that like this episode is like hammering down. Like you're seeing like everything that Hitomi is doing to kind of show that like she is actually doing stuff like with her skills and her talents to move the plot forward.
Yeah.
Whereas before this, it had always been feeling like she was just like being pulled along as the plot was going by itself.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that I think that isekai is better when it has a bit of shoujo in it. And I think a lot of that is you actually have female characters or lady characters with agency in them, or taking lead roles, or doing things that help the plot instead of just being like someone who just there for the main character, the real main characters or something. Like, because Hitomi is a character. She's her own person. And this episode kind of proves that.
So with Vaughn's location ascertained after all that divination, they go to the location of where the floating fortress is, which is like a very sneaky spot, all things considered, considering that the fortress basically looks like a giant rock. Just have it situated in like the basin of like a big mountainous area. So how are they going to go about raiding this? Well, free-falling the crusade as it is timed very perfectly with like a big sweeping orchestral score, which like, oh man,
Hell
like
yeah.
the music for the soundtrack in this anime is really good, but it obviously like it hits you how good it is when you see it used with like such perfect timing, because like this is like after such quiet and ambient music throughout most of the episode, like this big bombastic music just hits you across the face as you're getting ready for like a swashbuckling raid of the enemy's fortress, because like they drop down after like basically cutting the engines, getting level with the with like the hangar of the fortress, Alan and his men all like depart and just start cutting down all the Zybok goons as this music keeps playing. Like, oh, it is hype.
Yeah,
it is exciting.
It's a very
like it's a good old fashioned raid by a lovable band of rogues kicking the shit out of everyone.
It's just done so well. It reminds me, oh yeah, fantasy can be really good when it's done like this.
Yeah. And even then, after all this time, despite all the men leaving the ship to like basically go take out Zybok's goons, cripple them, as well as Alan like going to where Vaughn's cell is and getting him out of there so he can pilot Escaflowne again, Hitomi is still determined to keep helping and prevent a horrible premonition, least of all because it predicts Vaughn's fucking death at the hand of Dillendow. So she demonstrates her other talent of being on the high school track team and does a long jump from the Crusade to the Flying Fortress's hangar of 6 fucking meters. Like Meryl, like even though as much like she is like, she does not like Hitomi like on first meeting, like even she realizes like, bro, this is suicide, and like actually tries to like stop her or at least like actually be like, you're gonna kill yourself if you do this, like that's gonna be bad. But no. Yeah, like Hitomi like is confident and goes for it, and like again, like the previous like orchestral score we're talking about still plays through this whole long jump sequence that like makes every like the actions of every single character involved in this plan like feel that much more special. She may not be able to like fight or anything, but like she can jump and she can run really fucking fast.
She can do Mario long jumps.
Her athleticism is a good asset to have in this world.
Oh yeah, she can still do things. What she's learned in the other world means still transfers over here somehow.
So like with that jump cleared, she just like runs past everything to the hangar where like Escaflowne is held and where Vaughn is getting ready to pilot it, though not before Fulkin mysteriously just tosses back to Vaughn his sword, doesn't explain anything, leaves, and then cuts to like when Dillendow is about to get a sneak attack in before, Hitomi calls it out, Vaughn defends himself, get into a brief fight, and then cuts Dillendow's cheek clean open. With some locks of hair, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those details that was included only because of like the more shoujo influences. I feel like a more masculine show would have replaced those like locks of hair with a lot more blood.
Also, he freaks the fuck out over getting his cheeks cut. He's like, "No, my face. My pretty face."
Oh, it's so good. Oh, props to Dillendow's voice actor. Like they get like the sense of like mental breakdown in this character perfectly.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah. So like after surviving that sneak attack, that's basically the cue for Vaughn to actually get out of there, and get out of there they do. Like they deal like quite a bit enough damage to the inside of the floating fortress before retrieving Vaughn and getting the Escaflowne out of there. All's well that ends well, because we got our boy back, and Dillendow got his shit wrecked.
Sure.
But most importantly, it was like it was the satisfaction of getting to see Hitomi be at her most proactive. Yeah. So much so where it's like it almost feels like a weird peak in a way. Like she doesn't start doing more stuff like this again until way, way after the fact.
Yeah.
Like she kind of, I guess, goes back into, I guess, somewhat understandably because of like where they're heading to next, which is like the capital city of Asturia, which is like one of the major kingdoms on Gaia, and that's kind of one of those first instances when you realize that it's like after this kind of like heroic misadventure and kind of going to one of the biggest like sources of civilization on Gaia, like troubles are going to come up for all of our main cast because of Zybok's attempts to undermine like all the other nations politically, get in the way of our heroes, capture Escaflowne. Least of all, some of the stuff that happens to Hitomi, like at the whims of like the Asturia's princess and like other people like not really like trusting or knowing what to do with her, considering that she's not from Gaia. Yeah. So like it takes a while, but again, this episode still happening as early as it did is good enough. Like it's what we said. It solidifies that she is like she actually earns herself like the the position of being the protagonist
Yes.
in this anime.
These 2 episodes shows you what the show can be really good at, and shows you, Hitomi is just as much of a character as the rest of the cast, and she can still help and do things.
And best of all, these episodes being as early as they are means we did not have to spend nearly as much time explaining what happened in the lead up to them.
Oh yeah,
because that's kind of the difficult part about because some of the other episodes that I fondly remember are like way deep into like the latter half anyway, after like serious shit goes down, especially stuff that has more to do with what Hitomi's premonitions and like her divination abilities, what that actually entails, and like kind of what her biggest hurdle is. And that is the fact that like, because of how it's not a matter of being on Gaia like increases the accuracy of which like her premonitions happen. It's more that her emotional state is influencing those premonitions and making the future real.
Yeah.
Which is what is actually like causing quite a number of tragedies throughout like the entire series. And you can imagine is like doesn't really help her mental state much when she realizes that like her powers are actively like causing her to be at fault.
Yeah.
Like the episodes that kind of like deal with that a lot more, as well as I guess spoilers in this already spoiler section, as well as stuff that happens when she does manage to go back home to Earth before the show ends. Yeah, it's not something that gets saved until the whole plot is over. It's more of a case of like, this is terrible, I feel bad, I'm done, and is like one of those moments of like the hero quitting her journey before realizing that this is actually an unsatisfactory end and she needs to make things right.
Yeah.
Like those episodes are really, really, really fucking good.
They're so good.
And you'll have to know like more specifically what all happens in those by watching it yourself if you haven't.
Yeah, just go watch it yourself. Watch the show.
Yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure in one of those episodes when she does go back to Earth and is like returning to her normal life, I think she is also one of her classes. She's sitting in on a lesson that's talking about Isaac Newton and like the laws of gravity. So there's your there's your actual hint in the show as to who Isaac Dornkirk was supposed to be. Least of all because his first name was fucking Isaac.
It's been there since the beginning. God damn it.
Oh, Kawamori, you fucking mad lad. I can only hope that the manga possibly leaned into that idea more, considering, he was the one that basically said that's who Dornkirk was, and no one else on staff did. What a silly man. I love you. God bless Shoji Kawamori.
He's got so many ideas, but fuck it. I'm here for them.
Yeah. It's still wild to me that it's like that I can still think about, like, Escaflowne as being like a idea born out of Kawamori's mind, when like so much of the show admittedly does not feel like that because of like all the people that were involved with it. Because we've seen plenty of mecha anime already where it is like his only involvement really is just the mecha designs themselves. Yeah, you kind of forget the extent to which like all the divination shit like was born out of like his initial concepts. This was a fun discussion, even though it was like I was racking my brain for a good while as far as like, God, what episodes do we talk about? Because it's like, this really is one of those really good narrative stories where it is like, you don't want to just isolate one or two episodes out of it. You kind of want to talk about like large swaths of it, if not the entire thing.
Yeah, I think we settled on 2 good episodes, which is early enough but these are still like good episodes to showcase what makes the show special. Yeah,
it's like if we're as well going with like the with like the idea of like this anime should have gotten its own proper JRPG. It's like we basically covered the like the episode equivalent of leaving Midgar.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good way to put it.
It's the moment where it does also feel like, oh yeah, now like we got our airship, we got our crew together. We're ready to see the rest of the world. Let's go. And all the horrible tragedies that lie in wait for us, because there's a lot.
Oh yeah.
But this was fun.
This was a good time. Thank you, Ark.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Neff. Thanks to everyone at home for listening. And tune in next week when we talk about a different isekai with giant robots.
Yeah.
Yes, there's more.
There's more. There's another one. And this one is also a good one. So just trust us on this.
Yeah. We'll see you next week for that. Just keep guessing what it is.
And we'll see you all later. Goodbye.